world who was having today we're going to talk about Jazz from Toni Morrison. Let's go. Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Thank you for being here. Welcome back. I hope everybody is doing well. Thank you for being here. Today we're going to talk about a book from Toni Morrison called Jazz. So the book is here. This is a book called Jazz. Toni Morrison is one of my favorite authors ever. I just think she's great. I just think she's a literary genius, literally. And I think everybody who reads Toni Morrison can see the talent when they read. So Toni Morrison has won a lot of prizes during her career, including the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1993 and these other prizes that I always struggle to pronounce. I think this is the Pulitzer Prize, among many other prizes. So you can see that her talent is widely recognized around the world, which is great. One thing I wish I knew before reading the novel is that this book Jazz is part of a trilogy. So the first book of the trilogy is the book Beloved, published in 1987, but I haven't read the book Beloved. Now Jazz is the second part of the trilogy. It was published in 1992, and the last book of the trilogy is Paradise, published in 1997. So I didn't know that prior to reading, but I feel like you can read Jazz without reading the other two books. That's my impression. Now if you have read all of the books from the trilogy, please let me know if I should have been reading Jazz before it. The book is taking place, the events, I'm still struggling with English pronunciation. Anyway, the events of the book are taking place before and after the Civil War, and the events are also taking place during the Emancipation and the Great Migration. And as you can see, if you're familiar with Toni Morrison's work, the Great Migration is a topic that is recurrent in her books. What I like is that she takes a great deal to show us the impact of the Great Migration, not only on the family structures, but also socially and economically in the African American communities in the United States. I don't think it's a spoiler if I tell you that the novel is about a 50-year-old man having an affair with an 18-year-old girl, and he shoots her. Then she dies. And what happened is that during the funeral, the wife of the killer comes and she tries to slash the body of the dead woman with a knife. So when I heard about the plot, when I read the summary of the book, I was like, oh wow, this is such a crazy story. I want to read it. So that's what made me want to read the book. I wanted to know why the woman tried to slash a dead body, what was going on in her mind, were there things that we didn't know. I felt like maybe it could be like a detective novel, maybe something very unimaginable happened for her to have this outburst of rage toward a dead body. So that was the first reason why I decided to read the book. And basically the first chapter is really in your face because you have all the key details about the woman named Violet who decided to slash the body of the dead girl. And yeah, so yes, you understand the plot. So a young girl, 18 years old, has been killed by her lover, which is Joe. However, Joe was married to Violet, so Joe was cheating on his wife and he's being really bad. I don't like cheating men. I'm going to go character by character because the chapters are not numbered. So if I don't have a number for the chapters, there is no point for me to go chapter by chapter or to do a linear review. And I'm gonna start with Malvon. So Malvon, I didn't really like this character. First of all, because she took the habit of stealing people's mails. So who does that? Why do you steal people's letters? They don't belong to you. I feel like this was a weird habit, first of all. So that was the first reason why I didn't like this character. Second reason why I didn't really like this character is that I feel like she is guilty by association in the death of the 18-year-old girl, because she accepted to rent a room to Joe so that he could have his little business with his lover. And although she hesitated before agreeing to rent a room to Joe, she eventually said yes. And I feel like if Joe didn't get a place to have all these loving moments with his lover, the situation wouldn't end up like this. And Malvon knew that Joe was married to Violet. So this is not good. No, 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 not good. Yes, I was judging her. But anyway, what do you think? Do you think that Malvon should have said no? Do you think that she was right to say yes? Because actually she was hesitating and Joe was really pleading for his case. He was saying that he was feeling really lonely, and he has never been a bad man to his wife Violet. He was still taking care of her. And that he has always been a respectable man, and he felt like he was just longing for love, affection, attention, because Joe and his wife Violet were not talking anymore. I'm going to explain later on why they were not talking anymore, but that was the situation with Joe, and I feel like this is why Malvon finally agreed. And at the end of the book, she was feeling really guilty. She had a lot of regrets when the young girl died. Malvon, what have you done? Look at this now. What have you done? The second character I'm going to talk about is Alice Manfred. Alice Manfred is looking after Dorcas. Now, Dorcas is the name of the 18-year-old girl who has been shot by Joe. So Dorcas was the 18-year-old girl who was having an affair with Joe. Now, Dorcas is an orphan, and that is why Alice is looking after her. Now, Alice is a very conservative woman. She's really judgmental, and her life is defined by fear, which is really a contrast with her religious view, because I don't know if you heard the saying, faith is the opposite of fear. We had such a big contrast with her life being defined by fear, and at the same time, she's defining herself as a very religious woman. So there is a heavy disconnect between Alice and her niece Dorcas, because Alice is, she's a very fearful woman. She's frightened by everything, while Dorcas is a fierce woman. She's looking for adventure. She's living for the thrill. Alice's advice for Dorcas, as far as life is concerned, is to be deaf and blind. And what type of advice is that? I mean, what type of life advice is that? So it didn't work at all for Dorcas, because Dorcas is this adventurous woman, so she didn't pay attention to her auntie's advice. She just decided to live her life the way she wanted. And at the same time, can Dorcas be blamed? I mean, I understand that, you know, we have to keep in mind that the story is taking place in the 20s. In the 1920s, mentalities were different, racial relationships were different, gender relationships were different. So I kind of understand her point of view, but at the same time, this is still a rubbish life advice. I'm sorry. So basically, she's advising her niece to lose the control of her life so that she can avoid risky situations, dangerous situations, but then you end up not living life. I mean, you live as a shadow, and this is basically what Alice has been doing for so many years, until she meets Violet. But I'll talk about it a bit later, and I'm going to move on to the next character. I'm going to talk about Joe, the man who was cheating on his wife, and the man who killed an 18-year-old girl. So Joe is defined as a man in his 50s. He's described as handsome, charming. What happened is that Joe is worried about Violet because they don't talk anymore. He's saying that Violet has become funny. And that's a big concern for him. And what is more concerning for him, he's feeling so lonely that he feels like having an affair is not an issue, because to him having this affair is like looking after himself and um, honoring his needs as a man and as a person who needs love and affection. So Joe decided to start having an affair, but he doesn't feel any type of guilt or any type of regrets, because one, he feels like he has never been unfaithful, so it means that he has always been a good man to Violet, and he feels like because he's still taking care of her, he should be allowed to have his affair. He doesn't see anything wrong with that. And secondly, his justification for having an affair and not feeling any type of guilt is the fact that he's feeling lonely. He feels like the relationship is not working anymore. He is aware of Violet's mental health issues, but he feels like he needs to lighten up his life a bit more, and he takes the blame as far as Violet's mental health is concerned, which I found very interesting. He feels like from the moment he realized that Violet was sleeping with a doll at night, it was too late, which makes me question, if you knew that your wife wasn't feeling really good mentally, what step did you take to support her at the time? If you say that you were such a good man to her, what did you do then? Now again, I have to keep in mind that the setting of the book, of the novel, is during the 1920s in the African American community, at a time where mental health issues were not really acknowledged as they are now, of course. So Joe feels like he needs to look after himself too. He feels like he needs to honor his own needs. So he feels like he has to get things out of his chest because he's feeling this type of overbearing, stifling loneliness, and he just can't take it anymore because his wife is not speaking to him, and this is something that saddens him a lot. And he's actually really sad by the fact that his wife, he's actually saying that his wife is taking more care of her birds than she is taking care of himself. And I admit, if I was in a marriage and my husband would be taking more care of the pets than me, if my husband was to show more attention to his pets than he's showing attention to me, I would be proper mad. So I understand. I mean, I shouldn't be laughing, but I understand. I mean, I feel you, Joe. I feel you on this one. However, he cannot take the fact that they don't talk anymore. The loneliness is killing him. So that's how he is justifying him stepping out of the marriage and starting this affair with Dorcas, an 18-year-old girl. In his memories, we don't have the feeling that we don't see any type of sentimentality toward his wife Violet, even when, because at some point in the book, because the narrators are changing throughout the book, so at some point Joe is the narrator and he's recollecting his memories from the past, and even when he's remembering about Violet and his marriage, there is no sentimentality. He's not expressing love. He's not saying that she was the woman of his dream, that she was amazing, beautiful, you know, all these things that, you know, you'd like to hear about yourself from your husband. And we have this feeling that he married her out of necessity, like this was the thing to do, like it was like a responsibility to marry, so he married her. It doesn't appear like he married her for love, but it feels like he married Violet also to feel an emotional gap, because in the book we see that he has a fixation about finding out who his mother is, because Joe, he's an orphan, he doesn't know who his mom is, and many times in the book we can see that he has a fixation on a woman called Wild, and for him not knowing who his mother is really devastating. So perhaps he married Violet to fill these emotional gaps. However, for Dorcas, clearly we can see that he's feeling passionate love. He has passion for Dorcas. He's infatuated with the girl. He loved the girl, clearly. So there is a big contrast regarding his feeling for Dorcas and his feeling for his wife, because he's saying that he actually killed her because he didn't know how to love. So he loves her, but he doesn't know how to love her because he never loved before. That's the feeling we get from the book. With this affair with Dorcas, to him, it feels like he finally has control over his life. He has control over his identity. He can choose who he is. He can choose who he wants to be, and he can choose who he wants to be with. So that's big for him. So that's what makes him happy as well. That's what makes him fulfilled as a man, this discovery of self-agency throughout this affair with Dorcas. I still don't approve of this affair anyway. And also I'm high-key mad because he feels all this passion for Dorcas. He feels like he's in love, but is it really love? I mean, when you murder the person you love, we cannot call this love. So this is not love. So this is where I have an issue with Joe, and this is why I'm big mad with Joe as well. It's the fact that he feels no regrets for killing Dorcas. Now of course he gets sad, of course he starts to lose his mind, but is it because he misses Dorcas, or is it because he regrets killing a human being? That's my issue with Joe. So that's a big issue that I have with Joe, honest. So the fact that he says he killed Dorcas because he didn't know how to love, that's the reason why he shot her. I mean, come on. Who does that? That's not an excuse. I mean, no, you're a murderer. You can't say that you killed her because you didn't know how to love. Maybe you didn't know how to love, but that's not a reason to kill someone. So to me, that wasn't love. Not at all. So I don't like Joe. Joe, I don't like you. And this is a big contrast with the idea that people say that he's such a good man, and Joe himself, he sees himself as a good man, because to him, being faithful to his wife was enough to be called a good man. But is just faithfulness enough in a marriage? No, you need more to make a marriage grow. You need to nurture your wife. You need to love her. You need to love her every day. We change. We are human beings. We change every day. And the fact that he didn't really see that his wife was changing, and the fact that he didn't really take action upon it, he didn't, a marriage is like a garden. You need to water your garden so that you see that your grass is as green as the grass from the other side. So that's it. He didn't water his garden. He didn't really support Violet in her mental health issues. Now, don't get me wrong, I know it's really hard to support someone facing mental health or someone going through mental health issues, but in the book it didn't seem like he was really doing his best to help her. And maybe there was some type of misunderstanding. Maybe he didn't really know how to help her. So yeah, so Joe's excuse as, yeah, I didn't know how to love, this is how I killed her. No, I'm not taking this, because a lot of domestic violence crap is justified by the fact of passion, that people don't know how to love, so this is how they act. So totally unacceptable. I don't care what anyone say. Joe is guilty. Joe is a murderer, and he shot Dorcas just because she wanted to move on with her life. So that's just shit behavior. Unacceptable. He should go to jail. He didn't even go to jail. So that is making me big mad. And I don't like the fact that no one is really like letting him know what he's done. He should be held responsible for his action. Anyway, what is interesting is that we see a shift at the end of the book, because at the start of the book, Violet was the one who was seen as a mad woman. However, at the end of the book, clearly Joe is the one who becomes the madman. He started to feel broken down. He loses his mind. You see the shift of position, the balance, the core balance has changed at the end of the book. Joe is the one who is trapped in his issues in his head because of his actions and all the emotional gaps in his life that he actually never addressed. At the end of the book, also, Violet regained her dignity because she's not called Violent anymore. She's called Mrs. Trace. She's dignified throughout the eyes of a character called Felice. So here, yeah, the shift is quite interesting to see. So now I'm going to talk about Dorcas. And I want to apologize. There is a dog who's been barking for the past 15 minutes outside. So if you hear some strange noise, that's the dog. So I'm going to talk about Dorcas. So Dorcas, she's described as ugly in and out throughout the novel. She's described as having a bold personality. She's described as graceful and provocative, and it's really funny because there is such a strong emphasis on her physical attribute, and oftentimes she's described as having light skin, a long wavy hair, and a nice shape. And what is really interesting is that Felice says that basically she has all the ingredients to be a dime, to be beautiful, to be pretty, but the result didn't turn right and she's still ugly. So first, I think that this importance on physical appearance is interesting, and also the fact that you can clearly see the impact of colorism, because clearly having wavy hair, light skin, and a nice shape, it was seen as what was needed to be seen as pretty or beautiful in as far as beauty standards were concerned at the time. Even nowadays, in the 21st century, it's more or less the same. I mean, a lot have been done to fight colorism, but if you look at the media, it's still the standard of beauty you're gonna see most of the time. Dorcas, many times she is referred as being a superficial woman, but at least what I like about her is that she's not a colorist. So you can say what you want about her. Yes, she had an affair with a married man, but at least she's not a colorist, huh? But yeah, she's seen as the villain of the novel because, yeah, she's having an affair with a married man. She's seen as quite selfish, self-centered, self-serving. And her affair with Joe was really the catalyst of the worsening of Violet's mental health condition. I do have a soft spot for Dorcas, regardless. Dorcas, she is described as having this very bold personality. She's totally the opposite of her aunt. What's the name of her aunt again? Alice. She lives for the thrill. She wants to explore. She's adventurous. She's rebellious. She wants to live life at the maximum speed limit and even over the speed limit. So this is Dorcas for you guys. However, when the romance dies down, when she feels like she's not satisfied enough with Joe, she moves on with Acton. Now the issue with Joe is that she feels like with Joe there was no passion, she was not challenged, and she wanted to have personality. She feels like with Joe it was almost too easy, he was too nice, she wasn't challenged, and she didn't have this, this all-consuming passion. However, with Acton, she liked the fact that Acton is the guy that all the girls want. Everybody wants a piece of Acton. So she likes the attention she gets when she's with Acton. She likes the fact that all the girls are watching her, looking at her with envy. She likes it. She likes to be on the spot with a fine-looking man. So she likes her situation, even though Acton is not really treating her right. He's always complaining about her. He's belittling her. And Dorcas feels like she has to break her back to please him. She has to go above and beyond, and she doesn't hesitate to buy him stuff, to change her appearance to please him. So this is a type of dynamic that she is looking for. I guess she wants to be challenged. I don't know. I guess there's a bit of immaturity as well, because I remember when I was younger, I used to like bad boys, you know, and maybe Dorcas is going through this phase because she knows that Acton is not treating her right, but she stays because Acton is a hot boy. He's the boy everybody wants. So yeah, she knows she's not being treated fairly, but she decided to stay. Now what happened is that, and this is a very interesting moment in the book, and I guess this is the reason why I do have a soft spot for Dorcas, because okay, everybody says she's ugly, she could have been beautiful, but she turned out to be ugly. She's ugly inside as well because she had an affair with a married man, but nobody is saying that Joe is ugly inside as well, because Joe also has his responsibility in this. So why should Dorcas be the sole responsible of this? So this is something that I didn't like at all. So now Dorcas, what's interesting is the fact that there is a scene where she's in a nightclub with Acton and her best friend Felice. So she's slow dancing with Acton. They're in the club dancing and all of that. But in her mind, Dorcas knows that Joe is looking for her. She is repeating several times, he's coming to get me, he's coming to get me, he's coming to get me. So she knows that Joe is looking for her. It seems like she knows that Joe didn't take the breakup very well, and she's just waiting for him to come. And there is this very striking statement, because at this point Dorcas is the narrator, and she's saying that up to this point her life was unbearable. So this is quite a strong word, unbearable. So she doesn't like her life, she's not happy, she's totally unhappy, and she knows that Joe is coming, and maybe she knows that Joe is going to act out of character and out of anger. So that's why I was wondering, Dorcas wanted to die if she knew that Joe was coming for her. If she knew that Joe was coming for her, and if she knew that Joe would see her in the arms of another man, and in addition with the fact that she doesn't like her life, maybe she was asking for death to come to her. Maybe that was some type of suicide. I mean, that's a question that I asked myself. So what happened? Obviously Joe came, he saw her, he couldn't take it because he doesn't have any type of emotional intelligence. He's probably mentally unbalanced at the moment, and he shot her. I didn't like this moment at all. Anyway, he shot her, and you know what happened is that she was shot in the shoulder. So she didn't die immediately. What happened is that she got shot. She didn't want anyone to call the police. She didn't really explicitly say to the people around her who shot her. And she told Felice, I'll tell you tomorrow who shot me. And what happened is that obviously the next morning she was dead because she let herself bleed to death. Dorcas is an orphan, so maybe there is this huge pain in herself, her huge gap, her huge void for her. Maybe she was already in a very depressive state, and maybe that's the reason why she was always seeking the thrill of life, dangerous activities, spicy activities. Maybe because herself, she was also going through mental health issues. Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I was a bit disappointed that there was not enough life on Dorcas. I would have wanted to know more about Dorcas and her context and how she was feeling, what life was for her. So I felt like it was a shame that we have just this little part of the book dedicated to her as a narrator. Looking back, I feel like Dorcas, she was longing to find meaning in her life. She was looking for something out of life, and she didn't get it. And yeah, maybe she was just waiting for her death to come when she knew that Joe was about to get her. No, also what's crazy is the fact that when Dorcas is dead, Violet goes to see her aunt and she borrows a photograph of Dorcas, sorry, and she put the photograph up in her house, and they basically start to worship her. So it's only when Dorcas is dead that she is elevated to a almost a dignified status. So the picture, the photograph of Dorcas is a bit like an altar, because Joe and Violet literally come and stare at her in the middle of the night. They stare at the photograph. It's a bit like her death was what they needed to feel alive. So we have this very powerful contrast here between life and death. So Dorcas's death really acted as some type of revival for not only Joe and Violet as individual, but also for their marriage. And actually, I should say it acted as a revival for Violet, because she became a bit more willing to heal. However, Joe, he started to, it was a slippery slope for Joe. So it was not really a revival for Joe, because after the death of Dorcas, he became totally crazy. But yeah, maybe a revival for Violet, but a revival for the marriage as well. So Violet is a 50-year-old woman. She's described as being very, very thin, extremely thin, having a very dark skin. What else? Yeah, she's suffering from mental health issues. She's ironically called Violent because of the incident when she tried to slice the body. She tried to slice Dorcas's face with a knife during the funeral while Dorcas was already dead, so there was no need to do this. Yeah, so she's called Violent as a way for people to make fun of her, to ostracize her a bit more. And yeah, she's a bit of an outcast because she's suffering from mental health issues, but people don't understand, and she's emotionally and mentally unstable. And she said that the city changed her. So through Violet, we can see the negative and the devastating effect of the Great Migration, because this migration for her, like for, you know, living her southern life, her southern lifestyle, and come moving up north, it was the start of her mental health issues, and then it has been worsened after Joe betrayed her and started having an affair without her knowing. So for her, the city is really the reason why she lost herself, she lost her identity, she lost her sanity because of the city. She lost her roots, she forgot who she was. She started to lose control over her speech, she loses control over her personality. And you know, the issue with Violet is that she noticed that she was starting to say things she didn't mean. That's the first thing. So she figured out that if she stopped talking altogether, it would be better for her, because at the same time she felt ashamed, and that's the reason why she stopped talking to Joe. She felt like, if I don't talk to Joe, he's not going to realize that I lost control over my speech, that what I say doesn't make sense sometimes. So if I don't speak, he's not going to realize, and I'm not going to feel ashamed. So that was her silence, was a way to protect her, but at the same time, it deeply hurt her husband, who didn't necessarily understand quickly enough what was going on. She said that she feels like there are two versions of her in the same body, and this other woman who is living in her body, she doesn't know this woman. She's saying that the person who sliced, or who tried to sliced Dorcas's face, Dorcas's dead body at the funeral, was this other part of herself on who she doesn't have any type of control. So there are two different women in the same body. So that's the disorder she's suffering from, and nobody really understands it besides her. So the split personality really affects her, because many times she said that she wants to become someone else, and at some point she even said that she wants to become Dorcas. Since Dorcas is the object of her husband's desire, she's suffering immensely because she feels like she's not good enough. She feels like her skin tone is not good enough. She feels like she's too skinny. She wants to have more curves. And she feels like she wants to be younger. She has deep remorses, and she has a deep sense of nostalgia about who she was when she was younger. And here we can see the violence and the devastating effects of colorism, ageism, and beauty standards, because she feels, yeah, she feels like she's never enough. You know, she said that she wanted to be lighter, she wanted to be younger. She's not happy with who she is, and probably the fact that Joe betrays her, the fact that Joe cheats on her, makes it even harder for her. Because although she was suffering from mental health issues after moving up north, I mean, Joe's affair made things implode, because yeah, to have the willingness to kill a dead body, yeah, something is really going wrong for you to be willing to do that.